All right, so now in lesson 13, we're going to convert fractions to decimals. In the last video, we worked on converting, decimals to fractions, and now we kind of want to go the other way. So really, what are decimals? Okay, and they come from the Latin word decimus. Not that you have to remember that, but they are specific. Nope, not gonna be able to spell. There are specific points on a number line. They repeatedly subdivide. So subdivide, break it up into smaller and smaller intervals into tenths. Each place value, so every time we move a decimal point over, is 1/10 of the place value to the left. So 100th is 1/10 of 1/10. 1,000 is 1/10 of 100. 10,000th is 1/10 of 1,000. Okay, so they're all based out of this tenth. Okay, so when you think about, remember this lesson is on writing or converting between fractions and decimals. And when we can, we want to use equivalent ratios. So this 3/100ths right here, if you say it correctly and don't say 3/100, this is telling you what the answer actually is, okay? Because remember, if we have, oh goodness gracious, this is the hundredths, tenths, hundredths, thousands, right? 10,000s, 100,000s, millions, and it goes on. Okay, so if this is 300ths, we put the 3 in the hundredth spot. Okay, this right here is hundredths. Okay, so that was pretty easy because it was 100 and everything's out of 100. But what if we have this one here that is 3/20ths? Well, 3/20ths don't work. We can't just put a 3 somewhere in here because these are always tenths, hundredths, thousands. But can we rewrite it as an equivalent fraction? Meaning, can we rewrite it out of a 10 or 100 or 1,000? So I could divide this both by 2 to get tenths, but that's not going to be a whole number. But what if I multiplied this by 5? 20 times 5 is 100, and we can do that. That's right in equivalent fraction as long as we also do it to the top. And 3 times 5 is 15. So this is 15/100ths. So when we write that, you write it, that the 5 goes in the 100 spot, so that means the 1's in the tenths. 15/100ths. 15/100ths. All right, so now we're working on taking these fractions and maybe rewriting them in equivalent fractions to help us get to this decimal form. Same thing here. If we have 10/25ths, that doesn't do us any good. I can't put it as a decimal. But if I can write it out of 10 or 100 or 1,000, and what do we do to 25? Does 25 go into any of those? Well, it goes into 100. What do I do to 25 to get 100? Well, I multiply it by 4. So what am I going to do to the 10? I'm going to multiply it by 4, and this becomes 40/100ths. Now, be careful with this one, okay? Write it how you say it. 40/100ths, okay? And this right here has to be in the 100th spot. Okay, but you also really don't need the 0. So you could write just 0.4. Because again, that's the same thing as 4/10ths. Okay. And if we wanted to, we could have taken this, just to give myself more room here. 10 over 25. And what if we divided the top and bottom by 5? That would be 2/5. And then I could take 5 and times it by 2. And if I did that, that would give me 10 on the bottom. And 2 times 2 is 4. 4/10. 4/10. 40 hundredths, 4/10. Okay? Let's kind of think of it that way, maybe as dividing as we look at 8/40ths. If I'm looking at tenths or hundredths or anything, I can make 40 into 10 by dividing by 4. Well, if I divide the bottom by 4, I got to do the same thing to the top. And so 8 divided by 4 is 2. That's 2/10. Well, 2/10. You can just write it like this because this is the 10th spot. Okay, so again, if we can get this denominator, write an equivalent fraction out of tenths or hundredths or thousandths, then you can write it, you can use it just saying it correctly, 2/10, and you can write it as a decimal. All right, so we've worked on taking decimals, terminating decimals, and making them into fractions. And we've worked on fractions that we can rewrite as a power, some, multiple of 10. What happens when that doesn't work? What happens when we have something like 3/16? What do we do with 3/16? Well, I want you to remember that this right here, okay, and we're not going to be using an equivalent fraction for this one. There is a way to do it, but I want to show you this other way. This really means division. This really means 3 divided by 16. 3 divided by 16. So if we were to think long division, 3 goes on the inside and 16 goes on the outside. Okay? Don't mix these up. Don't say, well, 16 is bigger, I had to put it on the inside. Nope, not how that works. And so then we really could use long division to figure this out. 16 goes into 3 0 times. So I'm going to put my decimal point in. 16 goes into 30 1 time. 1 times 16, and then we subtract, and that works out to be, and I know, guys, I'm going to go through this maybe a little quicker. So if you need to pause it to kind of catch up, that's fine. Now remember, we had a 0 underneath the bar. We bring it down. 16 goes into 140. Now, guys, for the sake of time, I'm going to tell you this is 8. Okay, but if you need to kind of do some work off to the side and go, okay, well, 16 times 7. That's, oops, carry the 4. That's 112. 16 times 8. 6 times 8 is 48. 8 times 1 plus 4 is 128. Okay, you can do that absolutely off to the side. Okay, add another 0. 16 goes into 120. Well, we have the 7 right here. We know it's a 7. 7 times 16 is 112. Left with 8. Oh, I think we have one more we can add. Okay, 80, and I'll tell you that 16 times 5, or 16 goes into 85 times. That is 80, and there's our remainder of 0. So we know that if we wanted to convert 3/16 into a decimal, that is 0.1875. Long division. Maybe something we don't enjoy doing, but something we know how to do. Let's look at part B here. 7/5. That is 7 divided by 5. 7 divided by 5. 5 goes into 7 one time. 1 times 5 is 5. We subtract, we get a 2. We add our decimal point in. Adding a 0. 5 goes into 20 4 times. 4 times 5 is 20. And in that case, we get a remainder right away. A couple more real quick. 11 divided by 32. Remember, 11 divided by 32. Guys, and this one's going to be a little bit longer. So I'm just going to kind of get us started on it just for the sake of time. I know that you're probably done listening to me, but it goes in there 3 times. 3 times 2 is 6, 3 times 3 is 9. 10 minus 6 is 4, 10 minus 9 is 1. 32 goes into 140 4 times. 4 times 32, well, 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 3 is 12. And you can see how we can just keep going with this. Okay, so this one's going to keep going. I'll tell you that ends up working 0.34375. You can see why I kind of want to stop short there. Okay, well, you know what? This 35 over 50, I'm looking at that 50 knowing I can do a shortcut way. But let's just do, real quick, 35 divided by 50. 50 is going to go in there 0 times. How about 350? Well, 5 goes into 35 7 times. 7 times 50 is 350. Boom, done. Okay, so sometimes they're longer, sometimes they're shorter. But when I looked at 35 over 50, all I could think of was, hey, we can write 50 out of 100 by multiplying by 2. So if I take 35 and I multiply it by 2, I get 70 hundredths. 70 hundredths, or just the 7 tenths, because we don't need that 0. All right, so big ideas to take away from this is we now have our another method, something we already know how to do, long division. Make sure that if you need to take a fraction and convert it to a decimal using long division, that whatever number is on top goes on the inside of your division bar here. And also keep in mind that if you can, the easiest way is to rewrite it out of a multiple of 10 by using equivalent fractions.